Hello, welcome here. We are here to talk about the technology transfer. I'm Francesca Brescia from Lombardy Life Science Cluster. We have a great chance to talk about this process, critical for innovation, with some renowned speakers and world experts. I would like to have their view on what is the promise that technology transfer holds for those researchers working in academia and industry. So, let me briefly introduce our speakers. Indeed, I have the pleasure to have here with me today Dottoressa Daniela Bellomo and Mr. Isaac Kohlberg and Professor Gordon McVie. What does the transfer mean? And what effect does it have on the growth of biotech industry in the US and the UK? Starting with Isaac, who is currently head of the Office of Technology Development at Harvard University and has held a similar top position in the US and Israel. Could you please give us your view?
I've been engaged in technology transfer for almost 40 years, and I'm very passionate about the topic, as you will see. The process of technology transfer is a process led by research institutions and academic institutions, by which innovation and technologies developed by their scientists is transferred to industrial partners, to companies, to venture capitalists, to startup companies. And it's only through this specific process such innovations get further developed to benefit the public at large. To give you one example is if one looks at recently developed technology which is called CRISPR, which is a foundational technology in biotech. Around CRISPR technology alone, there are now over 4 or 5 startup companies that are employing more than 400 or 500 people, mostly in the United States. And the foundational technologies were developed in academic institutions and transferred to these startup companies through the process that we refer to as technology transfer.
Thank you. Gordon. Gordon is a world-renowned oncologist and the founder of eCancer, a successful free open access multimedia cancer journal. He has been involved in fostering science innovation as chief officer at Cancer Research UK. Please give us your view on the subject in the UK.
Well, I'm way behind the Americans, okay? I've worked in Europe all my life as an academic and as a cancer doctor, and we are quite good at inventing in Europe. We have invented lots of things. We think about DNA, think about monoclonal antibodies, think about magnetic resonance imaging, etc. A lot of these inventions were developed in America. So we're good at doing the innovation here in Europe, but we've been very slow in developing the protection of the intellectual property and then the technology transfer. And we are learning from Isaac and his colleagues in the United States.
I would now ask Daniela, currently director of TT Factor, the tech transfer company of 2 leading cancer centers in Milan. She has a long experience as a scientist and a business developer in Italy and abroad. Let's talk about Italy. In your opinion, what do you think is the status of tech transfer in our country? And why is it strategic to foster tech transfer for innovation and economic development?
Well, as my distinguished colleagues have said before me, the need for technology transfer to develop and for innovation to have a place in our economy is fundamental. First of all, because it generates the type of jobs that we much need in our country, which are jobs for highly trained individuals, sustainable jobs that will sustain a future economy. In Italy, the status is that technology transfer offices have bloomed recently, so there's more universities and cancer centers and research centers that have a technology transfer operation. However, we are still quite behind the levels of the UK and the US. So we need to understand that for technology transfer to bring the known and visible results that it has brought in the US, it takes long sustained support from the political level, and the administration level in order to be able to build a portfolio of patents and to attract the kind of individuals with a strong business and science background that can match these patents and these portfolios of inventions to the correct industry stakeholders.
Let's go deeper in the discussion and talk more about the key pillars of technology transfer, defining why these aspects represent the critical process for innovation in life science. Please, Daniela.
So, Francesca, people often think that technology transfer is about introducing a scientist to a person in industry. And sometimes that works. Occasionally that works and the sparks, shine immediately. But most of the times you need a professional process and professionals that can match the needs, the conflicting needs of these two sides that are talking. Industry, for example, will have focus on proving efficacy and non-toxicity of a certain molecule that a scientist has invented, while the scientist may want to explore more the mechanism of action. The industry may want to protect the intellectual property, while scientists want to publish immediately the paper. So there's conflicting issues that need to be brought together into a win-win cooperation, and that takes technology transfer people, legal framework, and in a process that is a professional process.
Isaac, can I ask you?
So I would like to answer the question by focusing on what's the profile of a technology transfer professional. So what it takes to be a good technology transfer professional is, first of all, as Daniela said, is the ability to appreciate and understand the various needs and goals of the academic scientists, the clinician in a hospital, and the industrial partner. So this is the first step, is to understand the nuanced differences and the goals. Then the ability to appreciate what is the value of the technology, to appreciate how does one protect the technology, to identify the right partner that will further develop the technology through what we call a business development activity, and then to have the legal resources to negotiate and put together the right transaction and agreement that will protect the institution and also would provide the appropriate rights to the industrial partner. It's almost like building a bridge between an academic institution and an industrial partner that could be an established company or a startup company. The building of this bridge we refer to as technology transfer, and the people that are engaged in the building of this bridge, because it's are the technology transfer professionalists. And another point that I would like to have, mostly people that like Daniela and I that have been doing it for a number of years, you have to do it with a certain passion. You have to do it with a certain evangelistic approach, because in working with industry and working with researchers, it does take a personal commitment, and it's almost I always look at this as a missionary work. There is a missionary aspect in what we do, in making sure that these innovations that come from academic institutions will end up in the hands of the right partner for further development to benefit the public.
I think you need to be multilingual, you people, because you need to learn the languages of the people in the lab. You need to know the languages of the clinician.
Exactly.
And everybody likes their own language. Clinicians are very good at protecting the truth from patients.
Correct.
By creating a language round about it. As an academic, the first lesson that I teach is protect. And don't rush into print, don't rush into a conference and blah, blah, blah. First of all, of course, you want your paper in Nature, Cell and Science. Of course, that's all. But protect and go and see your technology transfer people in your. That's the first thing you do.
What are the important steps to protect a new project idea?
The key, as Gordon said, is to understand really the mindset of the scientists and the mindset of industry. And in understanding the mindset, through understanding of the mindset, you can convince investigators that they should think about protecting their inventions before they publicly disseminate them. Because another major challenge that we have in an academic institution, you cannot really tell clinicians and scientists what to do. You have to convince them. And convincing them requires appreciation of their mindset. So that's what Gordon referred to. It's the understanding of the mindset. Now, in protecting the invention, the key is to ensure that before there is a public dissemination, and what we mean by that, it could be a paper, it could be an abstract, it could be a talk, it could be a seminar, it could even be a PhD thesis or a grant application. Before all these events, if you're a scientist, go and talk to your technology transfer professionalist.
What is the importance of the intellectual property in securing an asset? Are patents really critical in life science?
It's absolutely essential that intellectual properties are protected with a patent in the medical field, because patents are a way of keeping a short time of monopoly on the market to return, for companies to return on the investments and the huge costs that it takes to develop a new drug. So now we know that for a new drug approval, it takes about 1.7 billion in development cost in dollars. It takes about 13 years in time, and there's up to 95% failure rates throughout the process from the time of discovery and preclinical, which is where most of the technologies come out from universities. So for all these reasons, if you don't have a patent, and you don't have a patent that you can trust is going to survive the very tough review by various patent offices, you are not going to have any investment on your technology. You have no chance of anybody putting any money in it, because they can't return on this money.
And once we have reached the point where the asset has been secured, what are then the main business development process needed to implement and grow opportunities in life science?
Okay, so if you're a scientist that has secured intellectual property with a good patent attorney and has a good proposal, business proposal, then you have to, your technology transfer people will have to build a business proposal around this and ensure that they can find a proper match for your technology for further developing this technology. So a company in their network, or a venture capitalist or an angel investor that has expertise in their field and has the funds and the interest and the passion to move this forward, because it's going to be a long partnership down the way. The way this is achieved is by professional technology transfer and business development people with a large network of investors and companies around the world that can find the right one. So if you are a company, if you have invented a biologic in a rare field of cancer, then you will have to find a company that has the same expertise, and it is not going to be local. So this is a global game. It's a game of relationships around the world. And you have to, a good technology transfer will have to speak not only the many languages between industry and academia, but also the many languages in terms of connecting with the world and with other companies around the world.
Yeah, let me add, the business model of technology transfer is done through two main activities. One is licensing to established companies, and the other one is formation and licensing to a newly created company. The transaction itself is always a licensing agreement by which the institution licenses the intellectual property to its partner, who will then take it for further development. Traditionally, this has always been the case. more and more programs, technology transfer programs like the one that Daniela is leading and the one that I'm also leading, are now looking not just at the mere process of technology transfer, but when we come across, when we work with a certain innovation, most of innovation coming from a hospital or an academic institution are very early stage. These are embryonic technologies that require further development. So what Daniela and I and our respective programs do, we also look at the R&D roadmap to see what it would take for this technology that it could be licensed, and where will these resources come from. So there are programs around the world. I don't know yet whether they exist already in Italy, but they definitely exist in the United Kingdom and in the United States, where institutions have created their own programs to advance these technologies further before they have reached the point, what we call the value inflection point, that they could be partnered with an industrial partner.
Finally, all the activities of technology transfer are aimed at creating durable and effective partnership between academia and industry. What are the key factors for the partnership to work? So, Gordon, please.
I think it's, the word trust has come up 2 or 3 times in the conversation, and I think that's very important. And I think needs to be some way of establishing an interpreter to sort the language problem out. And to make sure that people can live together. Major global pharma company has just moved into Cambridge, UK, next door to a big development of Cancer Research UK. And that's an interesting little bit of geographic interaction. I think also you'll find in Europe a most extraordinary development for the industry getting together with academia, and it's called the Innovative Medicines Initiative. The European Commission has set up a program together with pharma and other industries, and they advertise projects, and the winners of the competitions get half of their funding from industry and half from the European Commission. And this is a really novel way to get industry and academia alongside one another and to get them oriented. And you can imagine that the technology transfer is very much simpler in that kind of setup.
Thank you so much. Daniela.
If I may add, this is totally as a perfect description of, you know, the creative ways that industry and academia have brought about to work together, like the European initiatives, etc. At a more practical level, I would say that alliances are based on licenses, on contracts that have to last 15, 20 years. So the length of a patent and the length it takes for a product to go from preclinical to the market, and it's a long time, and you can only work through that time and the difficulties, the hardships of developing the product on the basis of trust, personal qualities, the determination to resolve problems as they come about, your personal integrity. Because in our job, Isaac and I in particular, many things are gonna fail. Many of the projects are gonna fail, but the industry and the venture capital will always come back to us for new inventions and new ideas if we manage this relationship well. And of course, a lot of these are also going to give success.
Let me add that traditionally, the technology transfer activity was focused on licensing of intellectual property to companies, or through the existing or through startup companies. More and more, we are seeing that technology transfer programs have expanded their mandate to include what we now refer to as industrial alliances. And what we mean by an alliance is a true collaboration, where an industrial partner not only acquires the rights to intellectual property, but also funds projects and interacts with the labs and truly collaborates. And through these collaborations, new innovation and technology emerge. And it's because it creates a conversation and discussion between and a platform where scientists from industry and scientists from in an academic institution can truly collaborate. Furthermore, especially in the United States, funding from industry has become, especially in life sciences, has become a crucial part of generating research revenues for universities, hospitals, and academic institutions, especially in days where funding from the governmental agencies are dropping down. So it's an alternative way to fund basic research and to fund faculty-initiated projects. So for example, at Harvard, we have created major alliances primarily with European pharmaceutical companies. As we speak, we are working on an alliance with a major Italian pharmaceutical company that will fund projects at Harvard University, and through the funding and through the collaboration, we hope that new technologies would emerge.
Regrettably, our time is over for today. I would like to thank you for your contribution. It has been great pleasure to have you here. Hopefully, we will be able to discuss this subject in other future videos.